So what can you show me that my heart don't know already? We make our own sense. You're qualified in me. What can you show me that my heart don't know already? We make our own sense, and you're qualified in me.
Okay. Welcome to episode number 5 of Life in the Box, your podcast for automotive finance and insurance professionals. I'm your host, Chris Cochran, and today we're going to talk about the relationship between the desk and finance. My guest today is Scott Roland. He's a good friend and former colleague of mine. Scott arrived in the auto industry as a salesperson back in 2003, selling cars for Mitsubishi, BMW, and Audi before being given a backup finance manager responsibility at Audi. He moved on to become a full-time F&I manager for Audi for 2 years and was promoted to finance director. He left the industry during the market crash but returned in 2012 as a pre-owned sales manager for Infiniti and has been with Infiniti ever since. He's held the used car, new car, and now general manager's position. So please, everybody, welcome Scott Roland to Life in the Box.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.
Have you listened to any of these?
Yeah, I listened to all of them.
Okay. What do you think?
They're cool. They're very, very informational, which is the best part about it. I think it's a great idea to get people that are in the industry out there talking and discussing issues, concerns, suggestions. I think it's beneficial for everybody.
So as a GM in an Infiniti store, I want to ask you, what are your expectations on the relationship between the desk and finance?
Well, I think I've got pretty tall expectations, being the two most important components to my dealership, being the desk manager and a finance manager. I think the relationship between those two is crucial to the success, both in the front end and the back end of the dealership. Yeah, generally, you have very unique personalities in both positions. I think there's definitely a personality type for a finance manager as well as a desk manager. And a lot of times we can have some great relationships between them, and it's very easy to butt heads between those two positions. And I like to kind of view my employees as my family, and my desk manager and finance manager are going to be my eldest child and my middle child. The relationship between them, it can be rocky at times. It can be really great at times. And I feel as the parent at times trying to mediate some issues and concerns that come up along the way. But as far as what I expect from the relationship is 100% professionalism 100% of the time. I think maturity is probably one of the most important attributes that both of those employees can hold. And I think that we start to see some issues when the maturity level starts to fade away a little bit, or isn't really outshining at a given moment in time.
If you don't mind, I would like to touch on that subject because I agree with you that maturity levels do come into play and tend to be an issue between both positions. Why do you, just kind of going off subject a little bit, but what is the deal? Like, why is it that we struggle with that in a position within a dealership that requires you to be knowledgeable, talented, and mature? Do we struggle with maybe not finding people that have that maturity level, but keeping them at that maturity level?
That's a great question. I think part of the I don't want to call it a problem, but I think part of this stems from the progress within the industry. You start as a salesman, as most management positions do, and the logical next step into management is the finance role. So I think sometimes maybe some salesmen are given the opportunity to get into the finance role a little bit too early, maybe before they're as mature as they should or need to be. So that can sometimes present a problem. And then I think we also have just two really strong type A personalities that are both trying to perform at their optimal peak, and they're both trying to raise the eyebrows of the general manager or deal principals to make sure that people are noticing their job and that they're doing well and that they can do the job that they're appointed to. So sometimes tempers can flare and things can get a little out of hand because of that. But it takes a full mature staff and obviously a mature general manager or other supervisors to be able to kind of interact with someone who's lost the maturity at that very given moment.
So other than the maturity, what are some other issues that you run into between the desk and finance?
Well, I think, like I said before, you've got two really strong Type A personalities. The desk manager and finance manager have completely different roles, but they're on the same team. So, in order for a finance manager to fully trust their desk manager, I think a finance manager wants to know that their desk manager knows what they go through and has had the experience of being in the box. I think a big issue can come up when a desk manager has not gone through the box in their career, maybe found themselves as a desk manager circumventing the finance box. I think that oftentimes brings up some problems for the finance managers. But each role understanding what their job is and respecting each other's role is a big part of the whole family getting along. The desk manager's job is to structure the deal and work the numbers and work the salesperson and make sure that the deal gets closed. And the finance manager's job is ultimately to make sure everything is compliant, and then ultimately is the last net to catch any errors or anything that's not perfectly correct and that could cause this deal to not be funded for the dealership, which is a crucial and very important role that sometimes is not respected enough from the desk manager, or as much as it should be, maybe. And I think the finance managers kind of feel that sometimes and get offended.
Do you think that typically stems from desk managers who have not been in finance, or does a desk manager lose that clarity once they've been on the desk and out of finance for a certain amount of time?
That's a great question, and I think it's a little bit of both. Certainly, the desk manager that circumvented finance is just not going to have the knowledge, and not going to have the respect for that finance manager because they haven't lived it, they haven't been through it. It's not an easy job, it's not an easy seat to sit in, so it's difficult to respect it at the right level if you've never actually endured it. But you brought up another great point, which is a desk manager that's been removed from the finance seat for quite some time absolutely can lose some of the memories of what it was like to be in that box. And I think it can absolutely very easily cloud their judgment on the finance department for that very reason. I think a good desk manager should still always be involved with the financing process. The relationship between the desk manager and finance manager needs to be there, whether they've sat in the seat within the last 5 years or not. They do need to own the responsibilities of the finance manager, understand them, and be compassionate for them.
So let's flip the role around, and a finance manager that's never been on the desk. How do they relate, or how do you get them to relate to the struggles of being a desk manager? Because obviously, the desk manager, he wants to hold gross and make money, but he ultimately wants to deliver cars. And if it means cutting out finance, a lot of times I know finance managers feel that, okay, so be it. Finance is going to have to take the bullet on this one. How do you get a finance manager to kind of relate to a desk manager's struggles?
I think that absolutely 100% comes down to the relationship that was built from the desk manager and the finance manager. If the respect for each other's position is not there, then that struggle is always going to be alive. And for the finance manager who hasn't desk deals, which is probably 80% or more, so I think that can present a big problem. There is one way though that a finance manager can kind of get out of that boulder, so to speak, coming at them, which is simply just getting out of the box. If there's not a customer in your office and there's not a deal that you're cleaning or spinning, there is an opportunity for the finance manager to become more aware of what is going on with the deal that's about to be closed and that's about to be on his desk. And there's an opportunity for that finance manager to get involved enough to change what maybe could have happened with the deal, from the desk manager to uh, to create or to bring some back end finance profit to the deal without the desk manager being able to quote unquote not care about back end products or back end financing money and just strip it all out, as they say.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think a finance manager that never leaves the box is not a good finance manager at all. Granted, there's days, maybe Saturdays, where you just don't get the time to get out. But for the most part, if you're not cleaning a deal, submitting a deal, or spinning a deal, you should be out on the desk, maybe walking the floor, just kind of getting a feel for the deals that are working and how you can interact with that deal. I'm not a big fan of a finance manager closing a deal for a salesperson, but getting involved and helping make the deal happen. Not only does it help you, but it helps build that relationship with the desk and lets the desk know that says, hey, listen, I'm here to help you guys too. And so when they see opportunity to help you, they'll reciprocate.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. That's the most important thing. I think less important for that finance manager to be involved in the customer and closing the deal. I think it's most important for the desk manager to just know that that finance manager is a team player. He wants to be involved. He wants to learn. He wants to know what's going on. It also may help that finance manager understand how the deal went down, how the customer negotiated, how this deal was structured, maybe put his own insight into how it could be structured differently. And I think a good desk manager is very open to that finance manager's suggestions for structure, because maybe it's been 5 or 6 or more years since they've structured deals in finance. And a good desk manager, just like a good GM and a good finance manager, has to have an open mind and be willing to accept advice and suggestions from other managers.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you this. We'll wrap this up. I mean, your information has been very helpful. If you, to the desk managers and the finance managers that are out there, if you could kind of sum up um, the relationship in just a minute or two, for those guys out there that may be struggling with the desk managers that are struggling with their finance managers, feeling like they're prima donnas and they got big egos, and the finance managers that are struggling with a desk that they feel just doesn't care about them and is sending people out the door to get checks before they get an opportunity to talk to them. What can you say in a minute or two to just let those guys, give them a quick fix and a way to kind of mend the relationship?
I think the quick fix is breaking bread. Get outside the walls of your dealership with each other. Have a beer. Have dinner. Introduce each other's wives or girlfriends or significant others to each other. Spend some time outside the walls of the dealership with each other. I think once you start to figure out what type of person they are outside of that desk manager, outside of that finance manager, it may actually help both of you kind of relate to each other better, understand how each other works a little bit better. And when you work better together, guess what happens? The desk manager's job gets easier and the finance manager's job gets easier, and they both make more money. So it's really a win-win for both cases. Now, I do want to speak one thing to, the prima donna stereotype for the finance managers. I think a lot of that is very true as far as the attitude that a desk manager can get from a finance manager at times, when that finance manager gets the deal with no rate, and everything's at buy rate and everything's already been pre-structured or submitted to the banks. I can understand that gets frustrating for a finance manager, and they have every right to be vocal about it and express their opinions. But working together, getting out of your office and being involved at the sales desk will help alleviate all of those problems that can happen that really frustrate that finance manager back in the back end.
I would agree. That's great advice. I've always been a big proponent, and you can't change people. All you can do is change how you react. And if you can change how you react to a situation, that's going to ultimately change everything. So if you don't like how things are going, don't try to change the people. Just try to change how you're reacting to how things are going.
Absolutely. And we all are responsible for our own actions and reactions. And that's where that maturity level really plays a big part on those two seats. Above all else, we're all here for the same reason, which is to sell cars and make profit. The better you understand that, and the more mature you can stay throughout the day, the more success and the more opportunity you're going to have.
Awesome. Great stuff, Scott. I really appreciate you being here on Life in the Box.
My pleasure.
This podcast is going to be a great help to many people. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Good luck.
Thanks. There you go, a GM's perspective on the relationship expectations between the desk and finance. Sometimes it really seems that the two departments are on completely separate planets and with totally different agendas. It's similar to service and sales. They serve different purposes within the same store. But what we need to realize as finance managers is that if the store doesn't sell cars, we don't stay employed. And the more we recognize that, the better we actually get at our job. Empathize with salespeople and sales managers, feel their pain, and watch how their attitude towards you will change. As I stated earlier, you cannot change anything other than how you react to a situation. It is from that reaction that others come to change. As always, I love to hear from listeners, so please reach out to me with feedback, comments, or critique. You can email me at chris@themcdavidgroup.com, connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at LifeInTheBox33. And until next time, enjoy your life in the box.